We are an RIA. So we moved into Orion. We moved our operations into Redtail. We moved our forms softwares into PreciseFP. We moved advisor scheduling into Calendly. And then we kind of, over the past year, have been knitting all of that together to improve the firm's overall operational structures. So that's a little bit about me, and hopefully that helps get kind of a
Yeah,
launching point.
I feel like there's nothing more triggering than the word move when you have to move things from
Sure,
one thing
yeah.
to another. How was all of that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work, of course.
Yeah.
Like I said, I started here in 2021. It's 2026, and the pace was pretty rapid. And some of those moving those processes and those operations, they're big projects. You're
Yeah.
not going to do all of that. No office is, unless you have three, four, five ops guys and a bunch of people who can train your whole staff, which is very unlikely for smaller wealth management companies. You're not going to take all of those projects on in a year or two. It's going to take a number of years to do those big softwares. Redtail is a CRM for those who aren't aware. Orion can really run your whole business. It really duplicates the softwares that if you're working direct with like a BD or your custodial software, it duplicates that. It's a proprietary offering that you kind of own the data and you run. So it is time
Really
consuming,
nice.
yes.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'm glad that that's all in the past now and
Indeed.
it's future forward now.
Mhm.
Tell me about your office makeup. What's that look like?
Yeah, so we are a small, or small is all relative, wealth management shop. We are a registered independent advisor. We have 11 total employees, including myself. We're about 450 million AUM. We have three advisors, two partners. The partners are client facing as well. Um, we just added another back office gentleman to help me. So he's on my team, and we
Okay.
we run the trading. We're actively managed, so we run our own trading, and the trading is a little bit more nuanced, perhaps than a more passive shop. And then we have two client service associates. So that's kind of the makeup of the firm.
Really nice. And what's your tech stack entail?
Yes, so the tech stack, we are multi-custodian as of earlier this year. So our custodians are Schwab and NFS. Our tech stack is predominantly flowing through Orion now, so that's the hub. We still do have some lingering um, operations flowing through our old broker-dealer tech, which is Commonwealth, through their community link tech stack, but that will eventually move over to Orion later this year. So Orion's a big piece of it. Our CRM is Redtail. Orion actually bought Redtail a number of years ago. That was just a happy coincidence. We were already in Redtail, and then we decided to move into Orion. And so Redtail for our CRM. We use PreciseFP for forms and some of our internal processes, which is very helpful. We use Calendly for scheduling. We use Zapier to really just for a few small processes that really help the operational structure move in a more frictionless capacity, which we'll get into those details here in a little bit. So I think that covers it. Obviously, we have our own research platforms and things of that nature, but I think from an ops perspective, that's the big picture. Um,
Yeah, those are that's the core right there.
that's the
All
core. Yep.
right. I'll go ahead and hand it off to you if you want to share your screen and let us know kind of what's in process right now and how things are connected and kind of how that experience goes either from a user perspective from your team's end or from a client perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna really try to focus on the Precise FP process since, we are on a Precise FP webinar. I am gonna mention these other softwares that we work through And I encourage anybody who has questions, feel free to ask questions about any of the other softwares. I have pretty extensive use of them. Again, 5 years learning a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah.
in the weeds. So hopefully I can help with any of those other processes. So everyone should be able to see my screen now. Nora, can you confirm that you can see that okay?
Yes, I see PreciseFP, my templates.
Excellent. Yep. So I'm going to start here and just kind of walk you through some of the core templates, and I'm going to try to maybe speak to more of a intermediate beginner audience somewhere in there. I'm not going to go all the way to the beginner because there might be some people who are already in PreciseFP. I'll start for the true beginners out there who have zero exposure to PreciseFP. The most important part is the data set. Make sure you know and understand the data set and how it connects to forms. One of the more difficult pieces of PreciseFP is the learning curve around understanding the data set and the importance of your customizing data points and the importance of making sure that you're not duplicating data points, which is basically eroding the value and the structure of your data. One of the things I don't love about PreciseFP, and I'm sorry, Nora, to start there, is that it's one of the difficult pieces is that when you create a form, that form is owned by the user that's creating it. Then if you want another person in the firm to edit that, you kind of have to share it with them and they have to create a copy. So it's not like two people can get in there and edit the form at the same time. The reason that's important from an operational perspective is if you have multiple people building out multiple forms at the same time, you really want to make sure that they understand the data set and that if they are building custom data points, they are communicating that with other people who are building forms. Because the last thing you want is those three individuals building three different forms and creating three different data points for the same data point, right? Because then what happens is you're just creating a problem that's only going to exponentially get worse. So that's just a bit of a warning, I suppose, for all the beginners out there, the intermediate crowd. I'm guessing you guys have experienced that or are aware of that. So,
Yeah, we do have a question. What is the data set?
okay, great. So I will start there then. The data set is back here under the applications, and this is the lifeblood of PreciseFP. This is how everything works. Most of what is back here is going to be what I call in the firm stock, like a regular, just that's what comes with PreciseFP. When you first load into it, PreciseFP has a lot of these that are already pre-built, and you'll notice there's no way you can delete any of these. But there's other things in here. So like if I go to the JWM New Accounts tab here, you'll see that I can delete this here. So that means that's a custom thing that I've built. And the importance of the data set is whenever you create forms, these forms have elements, they have groups that are linked, that can be linked to the data set. And so if you set your forms up properly, often, most of the time, I would say you're going to be syncing things to the data set. That way, when you send an email to a client and they fill out all this great information, if you have it set up properly, when they complete that form, it's going to go and it's going to save to that client's data set. And then in future forms, you'll be able to recall and populate that data automatically for the client. So it creates a much more frictionless experience for both client and staff. So that is the nutshell of the data set. It is vitally important, and it's very important that you understand how the data set works whenever you are building forms. When you want to load, you can load and save, and then you can just not load or save. You just have a basically a free for all form, where your data is not saving anywhere in the data set. There are applications for that, but I think they're a little bit fewer and far between.
Yeah, it's
So.
kind of the paradox of choice where it's like, ooh, I could put anything here, but then it's like, oh, well, what do I put here? So how do you decide when something makes the data set?
Yeah, it's a great question and a great point. I think the my recommendation would be try to use what is already in PreciseFP as much as you can. I would say most practices have a reason or an example where you need to start getting into specific or customized data points, but you want to be very careful about just creating all your custom data points because it will make the software harder to use over time if you're not building those data points correctly. So the software is built and it's a good software, but I actually think the learning curve on PreciseFP is a little bit higher than you might think it would be. It's a form software. It can't be that complicated, right? There's a lot of controls. There's a lot of tools. It's a more powerful software than you might think. I will go ahead and plug the support of PreciseFP is very, very good. So use the support team. They're fantastic. They get back to you really quick. And also the articles in the help area is very great as well. So while I think personally the learning curve is steep to get the most out of the platform, or maybe steeper than other softwares I've worked with in the past. I think the support matches that. So
Yeah, and digestible chunks too, right?
yes, yeah, that's another great point. I think that's a great way to start with Precise FP is start small. Don't try to bite off more than you can chew. Um, Start with one form. Learn how it works, learn the data, learn the pros and cons. And I think the first form that we built is the website questionnaire. It's a very simple form.
Oh, and
I'll
I
show,
love that one. I was doing my own research, and came across your website and I was like, oh, they embedded a form.
yeah. So this is where it started, and you can see our team there and a little bit of a note. But then it's very straightforward, and you're just collecting kind of basic information. Clients don't even have, this is for prospects really. Prospects don't even have to fill all of this information out. You can see the red little asterisks is what they have to fill out. And then we just collect a little bit of information just to kind of get the conversation started. Like, hey, what are you guys looking to achieve from this? What's some basic data of your household, and then some questions that we like to ask. And then there's a little
So that's the
um,
qualifying part.
I wouldn't even say it's a qualifying part because people can go through here and still schedule a call.
Okay.
Um, and so you can see here, and I don't know, my share screen is acting a little funky, so apologies for that. But you can embed your Calendly in here, and so that's what we've done. And so they can actually, when they go through here, they can schedule a 15-minute call with our CEO. And then we took this form and we actually published it so that it does embed in our website. So you can build the form and then you publish it, which is it's really easy, and you can play around with it and figure it out. And probably like that part is very easy, figure it out in 15 minutes. And then you can embed it in your website. And then it creates a bit more of a frictionless environment for that prospect because they can go in and feel like, hey, I just scheduled a call and something's been done and they know, hey, I'm going to talk to these people on such and such a date. But it also serves as a little bit of a buffer for our office for people who aren't serious. If you're not serious enough to answer 10 questions, then you're probably not serious enough about being a client. And we all know that that can be wasted time and resources as well. So, kind of
Yeah.
circling back to your point, Nora, yeah, start small, start with one form, maybe two forms, and perfect those, build the process, learn the data, learn where you may have made mistakes, and then you can continue to build them out.
Yeah, I know a visual person. Can you go on the front side where on your website where what it would look like when somebody is browsing your page and wants to schedule some time?
Yeah, I can. We just did a new website recently, so
Yeah, I love your
forgive
website.
forgive me if I fumble around here. I'm not on the website. I'm not. We have a marketing director, and she runs our website. I just provided the link to the form. So
Oh, nice.
looks like it's this probably the schedule initial call button.
Yes. And
And so
I
this
love
is,
this. This is my favorite right here. And I know,
yeah, so it's
um,
pretty easy to get to.
yeah, there's two buttons you can get to it. And Nate said
Yeah.
it too. He likes the custom images with each form, that it looks great.
Yeah.
I love it too. Put your team picture there in the beginning. I feel like people's faces really creates that trust, research
hmm
shows. So I really like that too. And then there's a lot of information there on that initial page that'll provide, people with what to expect from this point on.
hmm Yeah, and so you can see here it's not going to let me go past it unless I put in a phone number and a birth date and all of that.
Okay.
So it and we want that, on purpose because we don't, again, if you can't fill out a few questions for us, then yeah, it
Yeah, I
might
like
not
that
be
you
the
say
most
that
fruitful
because,
conversation.
yeah, you
So,
got to build
again,
some like respectful friction in there.
right, but you can see it's not too much, okay, I want to do this, I want to, yada yada, and just kind of fly through here, and then I'm just gonna show you guys how this works. So I'm not even gonna type anything.
Yeah.
We'll say client referral, yada yada. Okay, next. And then there will take us right to the Calendly, and then you can see this is with our um, CEO, and you can pick your availabilities, and then you schedule it. Next. Put your name in. This is one thing that I wish we could integrate a little bit better, but that's just because you're embedding another software. But it's not the end of the world just to, throw in, a couple data points here and then schedule event. I'm not going to schedule the event because I don't want to do that, but then you click finish and there you go. And
Nice. Another picture at the end.
there's those are the partners of Just Both Management. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then thank you for taking the time, and then that's a prospect, and yeah, so that's a good. I think that's a good starting point, particularly for people who may be a little bit more prospecting, marketing forward. That's a good way to do it. If you're thinking like, that's not for me at all, I wouldn't even care to start there. Totally fine. Another way you could maybe start is something on the financial planning side, like take a small thing. What's something that causes friction in your operating system? Maybe it's tax data collection form. Maybe it's getting estate planning documents, life insurance documents, or maybe it's just kind of like general financial planning information where you're like, these people want a financial plan. We need data. We all need the information. The more data we have, the better information we have, the better we can do our job as financial advisors, right? Maybe it's there and you start with something like what we designed, which is the financial fact finder, which again just kind of collects some of the basic information that we need that then we can take that and there's kind of our picture again. You'll see we can take that and build the financial plans that we need.
Nice.
Earlier I mentioned about the importance of the data set and how it would pre-populate. So let's say somebody, and this is what's really cool about PreciseFP, and the better you build it, the more you get out of it. So let's say that client that just filled out the website form, right? And they fill out all that information. For us, and hopefully for the people on this call, you'll have that information saved into the data set when it's appropriate. In that case, it's appropriate because it will automatically create a contact and an account in PreciseFP, and it will save all of that data. So now let's say that call with Matt goes really well. We want to take the next step, and they say, "Hey, would you mind doing a financial plan for us?" No problem. We're going to send you another form. If you could fill that out for us, that'd be great. When we send them that form, this information's anything that they've already filled out is going to pre-populate. So they
Mhm.
don't have to fill it out again. And so the more that you kind of knit that together, the easier the more frictionless the experience is for that client. So
Yeah.
that's kind of an important thing with that. So
Yeah.
this is
And
a
Gloria was asking, did you build out that prospect template that you web published, or did you start with an existing template?
I actually think the way to answer your question directly, we built that out.
Okay.
Almost everything that you see here was custom built, pretty much blank slate. The
Okay.
way, and that's just more personal. That's how I like to work. I think I learn and I do things better that way. But that might not work for you. There are plenty of things in the form library, plenty of forms that you can work, and maybe you have to tweak one or two things. Great. That's no problem at all. Use that. That's what the form library is for. The way I used the form library often was when I was building something out and it was getting a little bit more complicated. I would go through the form library and I would go through all the different options and I would take little bits and pieces of the functionality that I liked, little ideas that I liked, and then I would kind of mimic them and then I'd build them and tweak it a little bit more to work for our firm. That's a great question, Gloria. At the end of the day, do what works best for you. You might, I think I deleted these out ahead of this call, but in our templates, as of early as this morning, I actually had some just form library templates just sitting in here that I had previously used to reference while I was building some of these forms out, just so I could see them easier, pop one up on one screen and one on the other screen and kind of compare and contrast that way. I cleaned it up so that this webinar was a little bit easier for you guys to see and see what's built.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna run through here and give kind of an overview. I think we're at a good point where I can give that overview of the things that we have built out and what's been successful.
Okay.
You'll notice that there's a few of these like stock images, like in progress, and then this is also in progress. And those are things that are in progress that we're still working on. And we just use a stock image to kind of indicate that. And then this one down here, I'm very proud to say that I used so many features in PreciseFP and so many calculations that I actually corrupted a form and broke it. And when I was working with support, they told me not to delete it so that they could study it. So you can break a form. I'll be honest, it's going to take a lot of work to do that. So I wouldn't stress about that generally, but that's what that is. So all of our forms that we're using live are gonna be branded with this like dark blue. And then you'll notice there's blue writing and there's gold writing. And the blue writing are forms that we're sending out to clients. So those are client-facing forms. The gold writing is something that we use internally. Now, I will say that that is a very unique, from my understanding, it's a very unique way that we're utilizing the platform. And PreciseFP was not designed to utilize the platform for internal forms. That's something that I identified as a value add that, hey, I can tweak a couple of things and I can make this whole operating experience better for advisors and better for our client service associates. And at the end of the day, better for the clients because our office is running more efficiently by making some internal forms and just kind of blocking them from the client. So that is a more unique way to do it. And I'm gonna shamelessly plug my request in here, Nora. Apologies.
Yeah, I'll take
But
it.
th but that's feedback that I've given to Precise FP when we were building this out is, oh, hey, it would be great if we could also kind of have that ability to create internal forms where, maybe just the advisor can fill out the form and it's not meant to go to the client. Um, So maybe someday, but there's
Yeah.
there's ways around that. So I'll go into the specifics of why we did that because that is a little bit more nuanced. I don't think it will work for everybody. So I'm going to skip over those for now. But you can see we have some basic forms. The big one here is the new client onboarding. All right. So anytime we have a brand new relationship with a client, oftentimes they come through the website or something like that. We have the initial call, and maybe we have a couple meetings and then okay, we're ready. We're going to start collecting documentation. We send them the new client onboarding, and then we're collecting a bunch of data, a lot of the things we need. And again, that data is going to be saved in the data set, and we can recall it at a later date anytime we need. And it will also be like pre-filled into, maybe they come back in 2 years and say, hey, you know what? We want to do some estate planning. Can we kick that process off, no problem. We have a form for that, which will pre-populate all the existing data we already have for them. If it needs to update, they can update it as they see fit. So that's the new client onboarding. And then you see here we have a lot of financial planning forms. And then we also use, this is another, I think it's somewhat of a unique way to use it, but we use it for our compliance rollover recommendation summaries, which I'm sure many of you out there are very familiar with. But we use that as a way that the advisors can just document those forms and we can send those out to the client for signatures. And, you can run reports on those as well and then document that for compliance. So those are the core forms that we use. And I'll pause there. Nora, do you have any comments or questions, or are we receiving any questions on that?
Um, just Beverly did say the AI form builder is actually not bad if you don't want to start from scratch. So I agree, Beverly. I think it's a great way to start when you're building forms and you have these ideas or
Yep.
kind of directions you want to test out.
Yeah, and glad you guys pointed that out because that was not around when I was building forms. So I built these forms in throughout 2024, and we rolled all of these forms out live in early 2025. And I actually will show you guys our users so you can see how integrated into our operating system this software is because you can see most people, we have a
Oh,
couple that
wow.
haven't used it recently, but this person's been out on leave, but pretty much our whole firm is in this. So it is very much integral to our operations at this point. So yeah, just showing that so you guys can see, the buy-in from the team and everybody using it.
Yeah, and Julie
Um,
said, love the internal doc, annual client review documentation.
Great. Okay. I was wondering if that was going to be of interest to people because it's unique. Essentially what the solve is, and I think a lot of wealth management companies come across this, particularly we're such a regulated industry and there's so many compliance regulations and it's sometimes difficult to get advisors and your CSAs doing the compliance piece is the same or getting the process to be congruent. And that was something that we really wanted to do. And so that was one of the big projects I was in charge of was, hey, how can we get all of our advisors to do their review the same way from a documentation perspective so that we can run reports more efficiently in our CRM, so that we can have a crisper compliance protocols. So obviously you're kind of working with advisors and the CSA or CSA we call client service associates um, staff to work to figure out what works best. But you got to get buy-in. And I tried multiple ways to do this. I tried to solve this in our CRM. I tried to solve this with other softwares. I think FP Pathfinder I checked out, and I ended up resting on PreciseFP for a couple of reasons. One, we were already rolling into the software. Two, I was able to figure out a way to kind of block it from the client view that I thought was going to be beneficial enough. And three, I was going to be able to create a frictionless experience for advisors that saved them time. And anytime you're telling advisors, hey, I can make your reviews easier, it's easier to get buy-in. And the way that I did that was by building the form, and it comes back to the data set, which we talked about at the beginning of the call and kind of throughout the last 30 minutes here. It's all about the power of the data set and your ability to recall notes, right? There's some documentation stuff on the first page, great. Client household, great. Annual client review. So there's some of these meeting topics covered, action items and follow-ups, meeting notes. So what I did was I designed these to where they can recall the notes. And then there's another section down here where you can kind of document historical notes. And the advisor can just put in, the date and just kind of what we talked about. And there's all these different things they can discuss and talk about. And then there's some compliance pieces here again that we can recall the notes. And so when the advisor comes in and they start an annual client review, everything that they talked about from the last client review, and depending on how the advisors do their notes, some of them do keep historical notes that go back years and years. It populates all of it like right there for them. And then as they're going through their review, they can add the additional notes, any additional items, etc. Check the boxes, things that these don't pre-fill because that's a compliance thing. You need to know what we talked about. And then check the boxes and then complete the form. This is where it gets a little tricky. And this was probably one of the harder parts. That's where I use Zapier to go in, and this is an example. This is how this works is once the advisor completes that form, then Zapier, which I'll pause really quick. Zapier is an operational software. Think of it as a trigger software. It helps you trigger events from one software to another software. It's not necessarily uh, integrated or something. It's like if you don't have a clean integration that allows you to trigger an event, Zapier can come in and help that happen. So what happens here is they finish the client review. Zapier does a lot of different things, organizes the data, cleans it up, and it ends up triggering a red tail activity. A red tail is our CRM. So it essentially copies all of this data, creates a red tail activity for our advisors, and that's kind of their last stop where it's like, hey, when you complete this activity, you're stamping it on the client's profile, and that's going to be our compliance piece. You run reports, you'll be able to see a historical record of all your completed reviews. And it,
Okay, and
it
that's
pre
what Lindsay asked. She said advisors are inputting the data direct into PreciseFP instead of putting meeting notes in Redtail. But it sounds like this Zap will create an activity. Once that activity is completed, it gets saved as a note for history in Redtail.
yeah, exactly. So Zapier copies, and there's a little bit of coding involved, very minor coding. It's like HTML, like learning how to like create spaces and things like that. But Zapier essentially copies all the information in here. It opens a red tail activity. It throws all of that information that a lot of it was pre-filled, but a lot of it was edited by the advisor. It throws that into the red tail activity. It categorizes the red tail activity how we want, which in this case scenario would be I think it's a client review. Yeah, client review. It automatically categorizes it as client review and it categorizes it as an appointment automatically, right? It titles it name of the client. It even links the client, and then the advisor just has to review it, save and close the activity. When they do that, the activity, as you guys know, if you're using Redtail, is saved to the client's profile. At that point, you can then use the no contact report in Redtail to see, and if you tweak the filters to match whatever your type, and in this case would be appointment and client review. If you filter for that, you can see, hey, who haven't we met with over the past X amount of days? So hopefully that
Got
answers
it.
that person's question. So that is a little bit more of a unique way that we solve that. And I will say that to make that the most frictionless, which is I think at this point, and I've had a lot of good feedback from advisors on this. They like this. It saves them time. It simplifies their life in a lot of ways. But I will say like Zapier is integral in that. And it takes time to build this out. You can see it's um,
Hmm.
there's kind of the coding I'm talking about with like the HTML, like that's a header, and then it's like putting a space there and it's bolding that, and again it's bolding that, and the break is a breakpoint, but it's grabbing some of that data and then it's spacing these out, and if the data's not there, then it just shows up as blank, but it does this. Um,
Okay, so you don't want it to be a wall of text in the red tail activity. This will
It's
make it.
formatted
Mhm.
automatically. Yeah, it's formatted using some of this code here so that it shows up and it's nice and pretty, and the advisor really is just reviewing it kind of as like a last step, like, oh, you know what? I meant to also add this in my
Mhm.
Precise FP notes. I forgot. Let me just add it real quick. And they don't have to go back to Precise FP. They can if they want, but these are the way I explained it to advisors when I was rolling them into this is, hey, think of this as you're kind of like a living, breathing document with clients think of red tail as your compliance. Like if the SEC comes in and they're like, show me all of your reviews for this client over the past 5 years, we're going to red tail for that. But the living, breathing document is here. So that's how it was designed.
Definitely.
Which is again a little bit more unique. And I think if you're having this question, then it's an excellent question, which is, okay, well, what happens? Like, how do you prevent yourself from sending that to clients? Which is a great question because it's a very easy accidental button to hit. So the first thing is train your staff, train your advisors to make sure they don't hit the button. That's one piece. But you can come in here and just set up at least like an alert kind of thing. So obviously, this is disabled right now, but if I were to enable it, if this accidentally did get sent to the client, you'll see the subject line as, "Hey, you've received this an error. Hey, John, or whoever you accidentally sent this to," and there's like a little message for them that's like, "Oops, sorry, this is an internal. Just ignore it. It's not. It's like blocked down." So it's at
That's
least a little
nice.
bit of
I like
something
that.
to make sure that if you accidentally did send it to the client, it's blocked a little bit.
Hmm.
But to my knowledge, we've never accidentally sent one of these to a client. And again, it's the notes from the review meeting you just had, so it's not. I actually think I talked to a compliance guy around the time I was rolling this out, and he was like, "I actually love that. It would be great if you could send it to the client, and then as like another form of documentation." And we don't just because it's one more thing for advisors to do. So we're just trying to kind of save some of that, some of the action items there, but that
Yeah,
is something to consider.
really
As
nice.
as far as these other internal forms, we call them data collection forms or internal data collection forms. And I'm sure other offices are familiar with this, which is oftentimes the advisor knows more about the client relationship, especially early on in the relationship, more about the risk profile, what investment model are you going to put in, what kind of accounts do you need to open, et cetera. Um, then maybe this our client service associate staff will know because our office is broken down more departmentally, where we are set up a little bit more institutionally, where advisors kind of run their own book of business, but through our standard processes. And then we have our CSAs, and our CSAs service all of our clients. It's not like one CSA to one advisor. It's more all encompassing. So the reason that we built these is so that advisors can quickly disseminate the information that they have to our CSA team, um, without kind of doing too much, I suppose, particularly on the new client side of things. So these forms are actually the exact same, but I built them slightly differently. I built this form to purposefully save to the data set. This form I actually did not build to save to the data set, which generally I don't recommend doing, but like I said, there are reasons for doing that. But the way this form works is, let's say we're onboarding a new client. This onboarding form is very big, and it was going to create friction for our office. It's not for every office, but it was going to create friction to ask the advisor, "Hey, I want you to come in here, kick off the onboarding form. I want you to come into the new accounts, and I want you to go ahead and create all the new accounts that you want, and then fill out this information as needed." There's too many pages. It was going to require them to remember, okay, I trigger this, but then I need to go back into the back end. I need to change this form and then send it to the client. It was going to be a tall ask to get advisors to do that. Not so tall of an ask to say, hey, when you have a new client, come to this internal data collection form and fill this out, which is, you'll see, it's very short. And again, most of this is going to pre-fill because we already have information on these clients, right? So it's kind of like some fee schedule things, basic information that they can help get the client ready if they're aware of. And then it's like, what accounts are you opening, right? And then the advisors fill this out, right? the advisors know this information. How many accounts are we opening? What's the investment purpose, the time horizon, the investment objective, the models, etc., right? The trading instructions. Okay. So they fill this template out. And then that template, the data gets saved to the data set. And then our CSA staff comes in and they trigger the new client onboarding. And then they send the new client onboarding off to the client. Well, the way the new client onboarding works is it takes all of that data that the advisors just filled out in the new JWM accounts and it pulls it in so that they can kind of review it and see what we're opening. Because there's a couple of data points, and you'll notice a lot of these might be hidden from the advisors or from the client's point of view. But there are data points in here such as time horizon or investment purpose that we want the client to be able to edit. Because maybe the advisor doesn't know. Maybe they didn't end up talking about that and or maybe they talked about it, but the client wants to change it for whatever reason. So that's how that works, and that's why we built those processes like that. That was more for uh, an efficiency perspective from an advisor workflow. There was going to be pushback if I asked advisors to do too much, and understandably so, right? There's give and take to all of these types of procedures.
Yeah, and where does it go from there? It seems like the team's interacting on that form, and then do you guys move this conversation to Slack, email, team meetings, things like that?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. The way we're heavily involved in utilizing Redtail operational structure as well. So when I say that, I mean we're using Redtail activities, we're using Redtail workflows. We use a lot of Redtail workflows to stay organized. And the people that really utilize the Redtail workflows are our CSA team. And so the way this actually works, if we're going to like zoom out of just PreciseFP, right? The advisor is actually going to trigger a Redtail workflow that's called major client event, new client onboarding. And then from there, they just trigger that workflow. Then they know there's a step that says, hey, go fill out your PreciseFP form. They go fill out their PreciseFP form. They move the step to this CSA team. And then the CSA team goes and sends the new client onboarding. And then there's a step that's like waiting, hey, we're waiting to hear back from the new client, right? Once they do that, then we use the Redtail workflow to kind of go through the process and the CSAs, take care of the paperwork. Um, that's really the whole point of this with when you think about it from the client perspective, and it is a pain somewhat for our CSA team. I think there's some opportunity there to make that more efficient in the coming years, particularly with AI. But what we do is we want the client to fill out these nice, pretty, precise FP forms. We don't want them to fill out all of this information on these nasty custodial DocuSign forms that are all crunched, and it's just like, oh my God, just tell me where to sign. I want to look at it. We've all dealt with those forms. If you're buying a house, and it's just
Mhm.
nasty to look at. So what we do is we do this instead. We send them these forms. We collect the data. Our CSA team puts that data in the forms and like as part of the onboarding process. And then we send those forms out. When we send them out, they're ready to sign. When they get the custodial forms, sign it, you're done. And so it's a nicer experience for the client where it's like, okay, I can click through these forms that are very easy to understand. It's spaced out. We give people like a little bit of like an understanding. Hey, this will take you, 20 minutes to fill out. Like, just take your time. If you have problems, call us. And then we take all that data and we do the ugly stuff for them so that they just have to sign the DocuSign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And
Yeah.
you're so right. I don't know how else to put it. That is so wonderfully said.
Yeah. So that's really everything I wanted to cover was just how we're utilizing these forms. The client review and the internal data collection forms are a little bit unique in how we do that. I don't know. I don't think that will work for everybody. And if you're going, particularly in the annual client review, I couldn't get that process. I couldn't get buy-in from the advisors if I didn't have Zapier full disclosure, if I couldn't make that happen. Um, so just be aware of that. You know, if you really like that idea, then Zapier is a must.
Hmm.
And I
And
would
then
say
Orion's
getting
at the end of the tech stack, right?
yeah, Orion's yeah, that's a I guess a good way to think about it. Orion is really more of like your operating hub. You could run your whole business out of Orion from, and this is going to be more for RIAs, advisor Orion Advisor Tech, and essentially you can be multi-custodian, and your custodians are going to send you overnight files into the Orion database, and then from there you can do whatever you need really for your business. You can run your reports out of there. You can trade out of there. You can run your compliance, run queries. You have access to your data, and it's managing your database. So, you know, when the client signs that DocuSign, and they open the account up at, you know, Schwab or wherever you're custodied at, um, the next day that file automatically opens at Orion and all the core data shows up at Orion, and then it's up for our team to review it, household it, clean up how we want it to be labeled, and then you know they're in our tech stack.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nate says for the forms to specifically collect documents, do you have your file storage platform connected to PreciseFP or keep that separate?
That is such a great question. And you know, I don't think I know we don't have it connected. I know that.
Okay.
I think it would be great if you could connect it. Um, I don't know. That's going to be a compliance, you know, if it depending on how you're linking things and the integration and whatnot. I don't even think that's something I looked into. It's something I probably should look into because it sounds like it might save some time. But generally, the way that we do that is we use it just to collect the documents, and then like let's take the estate planning for example. Um, the Taylor who runs our financial planning department, she'll just take those documents and she'll save them to the client folder that we have, kind of like our internal drive, you know, our OneDrive, for example. And she'll
Mhm.
just save those for documentation. But I think you're right. If you were to link those, then it would absolutely um, save some time. It'd be more efficient that way, 100%.
Yeah, I'll paste our partners link because we do have some document storage partners where that could happen automatically for you, but it would have to be one of those integrations unless you go
Yeah.
maybe a Zapier route.
I think, and yeah, and the Zapier route would be, that'd be tough to move attachments like that. It'd be it's definitely possible. Um, I, now that we're talking about this, our tech right now, we couldn't set up because of how our document storage is set up through our former broker dealer, because we're still on that license. So we actually couldn't do that, which
Mm,
is why we don't have it set up. But if you're on your own like 365 license, and then you probably can set it up, and you know, as long as your compliance guy says it's safe, then by all means, I'd set it
yeah,
up.
right.
Yeah.
Ruben says, how big was JWM when they brought you on, Nick? How was the team size and number of clients the firm served?
Let's see. I think we're about when I started in 2021, maybe 350, somewhere in there, 300 maybe. We have grown the firm by, let's see, two more people since I started. So when I joined, there was nine. Um, Number of clients, our average household is around 1 million. Um, so I think, yeah, maybe 300 households, give or take.
Hmm.
Um,
Nice.
1,200 accounts, 1,100 accounts, somewhere in there. So
Okay. And are you using Redtail workflows as the guides to your ops team slash CSAs for things like Orion processes, new client household, billing, compliance, trading, etc.?
Yes, yeah, we are. Redtail is still the hub of our operational setup. Yes, we use workflows. Um, if you're investigating getting into Redtail more fully, I recommend setting up a Redtail style guide. You can Google that or ask Redtail about it. They'll send you an example. Set up a style guide. Use some of their forms and then or use some of their kind of they have templates just like PreciseFP for their workflows. Look at their templates and then build out specific processes. And it's time consuming and it's difficult to set everything up correctly. Or I shouldn't say correctly because correct, it depends on your office, but to set everything up efficiently.
Hmm.
But yes, it's very fruitful once you set them up.
Yeah.
Our office is, I guess you could say it's dependent, but that's how our office functions. From advisors communicating to the CSAs and the CSAs communicating to the traders, which is me and my coworker Ben. That's how we communicate is through
Okay.
Redtail workflows.
Nice.
Yeah.
And does your client sign off on the onboarding? Like, can you walk through how you utilize the onboarding fact finder and then populate the CRM, RIA firms, and agreements?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, our clients are signing off. We don't actually require a signature, but they must complete the form. And when they complete the form, then it comes back to us. There are exceptions with certain types of clients where maybe they're not as tech forward and we have to kind of go back to an old school pen and paper way, which is a whole nother box of worms. But yes, we require them to complete the form. And then from there, one of the reasons we picked PreciseFP is because the data integrates with Redtail pretty well. Not everything, but the core, the bulk of what you need integrates with Redtail. And all you have to do is push that data back out to Redtail. And you can pull the data from Redtail into PreciseFP. They speak back and forth. So that's how the core pieces of data get pushed over there. And then on the agreements, that would be more through the custodial package. So from at that point, then our CSA is taking all this information and they're going in and they're using that information to pre-populate the forms so that the client can just sign the advisory agreements and things of that nature just right there. You could put some of your agreements inside PreciseFP and they also have integrations with certain custodians. One of the issues that I ran into at another custodian is the custodial forms change and they don't let you know when they change. And so it takes a lot of work to get those forms up and running in PreciseFP. And if they change, it kind of halts your process. So definitely investigate that before you go gun ho on PDF templates. So I think that answers all of those questions.
Yeah, really nice. Thank you. And about the form embedding on your website, someone had a question about do you just add the link to the form into the website? They use Squarespace.
Yeah, yeah, you won't have any problems with I'm gonna pull this. Well, I think I'll be all right. Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, but you create the URL right here in the software, and then from here you can just copy the URL. There's your URL. Put it in your Squarespace hosting website. All done. Very
Nice.
very easy.
Yeah, another option is there is the embed option, which will create the
Yeah,
code for you, and you just paste that in as well as an option. But definitely, I know we were before the session, like start there, make a contact us form on your website with
yeah. I
PreciseFP.
think that's an excellent place to start. Yeah.
Yeah. So the data set and the contact us form, great spots to begin.
Hmm.
And Dottie
Absolutely.
said PreciseFP also integrates well with eMoney.
Hmm.
And what are you
Yeah.
guys using for planning?
We use Right Capital,
Okay.
um, and that's that operations and everybody on this call knows it's a never-ending battle. There's by no means is our tech stack perfect? And there are many areas where we can be better and more efficient, and that's a good example of where we could be more efficient, is if this data connected more seamlessly. There's some other big operational structures going on with moving custodians and some of those former custodial agreements with the softwares that have kind of delayed that integration from our perspective. But yes, if you're using MoneyGuy Pro, absolutely look into those integrations. Great
Mhm.
point.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I think those are all of the questions for today. And I think
Wonderful.
everyone loved being able to have a look and feel and see into all of those different forms and the processes. I think you're a wealth of knowledge, Nick. Thank you so much.
Well, I don't know about that, but hopefully it helped and gave some people some ideas. And yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, see, Nate's saying thanks so much. Rosemary says great information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Ruben, Dottie, everyone's saying thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of the day and take care, everyone.